Welcome to another episode of the Plutus Awards podcast. I'm your host, Chris Browning. Our community is filled with hundreds of stories from creators and entrepreneurs just like you. And through this podcast, we plan to share these stories from bloggers to podcasters, writers, speakers, and more. Let's meet today's guest.
Hi, my name is Bethany Bayless. I am the co-host and founder of the Money Millhouse podcast that I started with my mom about 2 years ago. We do it because we love talking with each other. We love talking about personal finance, and we thought it would be a great way to follow up with some of the people that we've met around the country while doing our Heroes at Home program that teaches financial education to military families across the world.
Today, I am excited to be sitting here with Bethany. How's it going?
Hi, Christopher Browning. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for using all the syllables in my name. I appreciate that.
I was about to end it, Chris, but then I kept on going. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you continuing just putting it all out there. Thank you. Appreciate that.
No problem. Just so people know that your full name is actually Christopher.
Yes, I only hear that when I go home and I've done something my mom doesn't like. So thank you for giving me horrible flashbacks.
Same. My mom also calls me Christopher when I'm in trouble.
So weird.
I know.
Well, I'm happy to have you here, Bethany, because we're going to be talking about something that really isn't that exciting to deal with, but it is something that's a reality, I think, for a lot of us who are creating content, whether you're making a blog, whether you're doing a podcast, whatever it may be. I think we all deal with burnout in some form or another. And really, when we're talking about burnout, it's really almost like this desire to quit or give up because you just feel overwhelmed and it feels like you're just doing a million things at one time and you definitely do not have enough hours in the day to complete it. And so I know this is a conversation that we've had before in the past. We've talked about this. I know we've both experienced this. And so I just want to have a discussion with you about burnout and, your experience with it. And we can kind of go back and forth and just share, because I know the people listening have all hit this point at some point in their life, or maybe they're coming up to it right now. It hasn't quite hit them in the face yet, but burnout is coming around the corner. It is something that you can definitely get through, but I think it's something you need to be mindful of. So, Bethany, what has been your experience with having these feelings and feeling like you just hit a wall and you want to just stop and give it a break?
Yeah, as an entrepreneur or just even someone who makes projects, so maybe you have a day job and you're doing this on the side, it's one of those things that it is very, very real, and burnout is very real. I am an entrepreneur. I've never had a traditional 9 to 5. So all I know is the ups and downs of the feasts or the famines. So like when you're an entrepreneur, sometimes you have like a ton of work coming in and it's super wonderful. And then there's other times when it's a complete famine and like no work is coming in, but you're still hustling, you're still grinding, you're still working on things day to day. And in my own personal experience, I feel like I've wanted to quit this entrepreneurial hustle probably like 3 or 4 times. Like each time it's like one of those things that like one season, like things are so great and wonderful, I can do this for the rest of my life. And then 2 months, 2 weeks later, you're like, okay, I'm done. I'm quitting. I'm going to go work at the Cheesecake Factory or something. Like I'm over it. I'm so over it. I go through these things, these down shifts of burnout every once in a while. And I think it's really difficult because as entrepreneurs, we oftentimes, or just as content creators, we associate our worth and our value with what we are able to produce. And sometimes when you feel like your worth or your value is not measuring up to what you want it to be, then you're just at the point where you're like, all right, I'm done. I want this to be easier so that my value can be, that I won't strive as hard and keep failing, or it feels like I keep failing,
I think we gain so much value from the work that we're doing. You're completely right that especially if things aren't going the way you want them to, or maybe it's just been a long drag of doing the same routine and I've lost, I think, maybe the passion or the value of what the work you're doing. It's kind of hard to shake that. And I know for me, I've been getting that for, off and on over the past, couple of years, because you just do something so often that you just need a break. And, I want to ask you, how do you care for yourself during these times when you feel so burnt out? Like you want to go work at a Cheesecake Factory, hopefully one near where I live so I can get free cheesecake. What do you do? How do you care for yourself when you hit those roadblocks and you feel like you want to stop?
It's hard. the wonderful thing is that I have very supportive family and a very supportive husband who tries to relate. He tries to understand what it's like as a content producer who's, maybe not getting the traction that they want to, or getting passed over for opportunities that you were really excited for. There's a lot of different things that I personally do when it comes to burnout, when it comes to self-care and all of that. Number one, I get a massage frequently. This is something that I, set aside. Massages are very important. And I consider that part of self care because it just helps me to relax, to breathe, to meditate for a little bit. But there have been other times too where setting very strong boundaries when it comes to the work that you do can also be really important. So I have found myself on weekends not working, which sounds
Hmm.
crazy, right? And sometimes, not everybody is able to do that, but having a very specific day for a Sabbath, or like a day of rest, or something where you're just not doing work, you're enjoying your family, because ultimately, I personally work so that we can have a better quality of life, but also, to change lives and all those things. But I don't want to sacrifice that time with my family. I don't want to sacrifice that for chasing dreams that, I'm struggling with at the time, or having a hard time with burnout and all of that.
That is huge. Is setting that day aside, or maybe it's one day, 2 days, whatever it may be, to give yourself a break. And I know that was something really hard for me to adopt into my routine when I got started, because it felt like all you hear is hustle, hustle, hustle.
Yes.
If you're not sleeping, you're hustling. It's always this push, and you hear it over and over, whether it's on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, wherever it is, and you feel guilty for not doing that, especially when you don't feel like you are where you want to be, or where you feel like you should be in
Mm.
your business and your project, whatever it may be. And I think it's hard to then ignore all those voices and say, you know what, I'm going to take a day off and I'm going to do nothing productive because this is what I need.
Oh,
So I mean,
it's so
how
hard.
right, right.
So I recently, in the past month, I decided very consciously and very intentionally to take a month off, like a
Mm,
whole month, not working on things. Our podcast went on hiatus. We have a few little things here and there, but it was just a month of rest and a month of just realizing what I enjoy doing. Every morning, I would make a point of going out in my hammock and reading a book and drinking a cup of coffee. Like, that was my morning routine for this whole month. And the part of resting is not hard, right? Like, it's not hard to sit on the couch and binge watch Netflix. Like, that is not the difficult part at
no.
all. Like, it was not hard laying in my hammock in the morning, California sunshine. Like, that was not difficult. The difficult part was that at some point throughout the day, frequently, I kept having that nagging feeling in the back of my mind of, I should be doing something. I should be doing something. I'm not doing anything. I should be doing something to prove that I have been productive today. Or that, when my husband comes home, he's like, what did you do today? I don't want to say I just sat on the couch and watched Netflix all day long. Like, I felt like I had to prove and validate my existence by working and by continually putting that out. But the month of rest, it was hard because of those reasons, because of that nagging feeling of, I have to do something to be worth my day. My day has to show something for it.
Is that because, do you feel like people are judging you for not doing anything, or do you feel it's like an internal pressure that you have on yourself? Like, where do you feel that pressure coming from?
I definitely think it's internal. I think a lot of it is internal. However, like you were saying, certain people, if I'm looking online, if I'm looking in certain groups that I'm a part of, and I read a question like, how often do you rest? And people go, never. I always work. I'm always working. It's those perceived thoughts of, oh my gosh, all these other people are so much farther ahead of me. All these other people are working so much harder than me. Maybe that's the reason why I haven't accomplished the things that I want to yet, or my
Mm.
goals, or whatever. And I mean, I think there's that balance, right, of being able to accomplish your goals, working hard for those, but not letting that be your whole life and obsessing over it, and not letting it be what defines you. And I personally have so much struggle with that. And I think it's interesting. This is probably the most real conversation I've had on the subject because I mean, I feel like sometimes I'm perceived as like a very outgoing, energetic, and happy and confident and all of these things. And at the end of the day, I have so many self-doubts. I have so many things that I question myself of, am I doing enough? Am I working hard enough? And no, there is no rest days. And that just led to a point where I didn't want to do anything.
Mm.
I didn't know what I was doing. I felt very directionless and I didn't have answers to even the questions I was asking myself.
And I remember us having this conversation. We were actually at a book event for Tanya Hester for her
Ah,
new book, Work Optional. And we were standing in line waiting to talk to Tanya. We were like fanning out over there. Hey, can't wait to get my book signed by Tanya. And we were just talking. And I mentioned to you how I think a lot of people admire your work and you speaking. And you mentioned how you don't see it that way.
mm,
And for everyone on the outside, we all have these different images of the people we see. We have these perspectives on how well they're doing and the work they're putting in and how successful they are. But that doesn't mean that they feel that way about their own work. And I think it is so hard to, I guess, find a place of peace
mm,
and a place of like satisfaction with your work and where you are and the amount of effort you're putting in when you're constantly comparing yourself to where these other people are and assuming that they're happy with the level of work that they're doing and then they're not themselves burnt out and maybe tired of doing what it is that they're doing.
mm.
And I want to ask you, how do you go about setting goals for yourself to make, I guess, yourself feel accomplished? Because I think one of the big things that causes this feeling, I think, of burnout and wanting to give up, other than just doing maybe too much stuff, is maybe, setting goals that are too lofty or maybe taking too much and putting too much on your plate. So how do you go about setting goals and expectations that can help you avoid this feeling of wanting to just stop and give up? Like, what are you doing to help yourself feel accomplished?
Absolutely. And I love what you mentioned just a few seconds ago about comparing yourself to others. And I feel like everyone has this sense of comparison with each other. Like it's a very, very common thing. Everyone compares themselves to other people, especially in our community, especially in personal finance and the people. I mean, we're seeing these people, we admire them. And there is that saying, it says comparison is a thief of joy.
Mm.
And it's so incredibly true. If I continue to compare myself to people like, oh, they have so many followers on Instagram, or look at their amazing course, or even they're making so much money. I wish I could make that much money doing the same thing too. Or look, they're speaking at these really amazing events. I have to then go back and be like, well, that's where I want to be, but I have to decide the steps that are going to get me there. Right. So,
Mm.
like, if I want to get Instagram followers, I have to post on Instagram, right? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, it's super basic. It's like step number one. That's where I am, right? Step number one, post on Instagram, be more intentional, work on, even what your pictures look like or what you're saying underneath the captions. Look at different, those small little things for me is what I start to see as my goals. So, like, I have these really great goals, but what's step number one? What are those things that I can say, I want to be at step 10 now? I want it
Yeah.
now. And I think that other people may have skipped steps 1 through 9 and they're at 10, but they went through those steps and I have to do the same thing. So when it comes to making goals, I have a lot of great goals. And I feel like it's really important to limit the amount that I'm putting on myself when it comes to goal. This is like the opposite of what everyone teaches. Is like limit your goals. But one step at a time. I'm learning now of focusing much more on one project, making a foundation and then building on that. So I
Mm.
want to do one thing super good. And then when I'm done with that super good thing, what's the next step on top of that? I want to do that super good. And I want to have, people who guide me and help me in that, which is why I'm a part of so many masterminds. I have some really great accountability partners that help me realize, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that that was a step in this process. And I'm learning these steps and I'm learning steps 1 through 9 before I get to step 10.
No, that's great. And that really brought up in my mind something that I've been dealing with too, is that when I have this huge list of things I need to do, I've seen all the things people are doing. And I keep adding to my list. I need to do this, I need to do that, and whatever else is on there. It's breaking it down into smaller, bite-sized, achievable tasks versus oh, I just need to have the best website that has ever existed. How about
Mhm.
I work on having a good landing page, or maybe how about having a good about me page? Like working on these smaller goals that I can work on, focus on, and like you said, become great at that one task, or really work on perfecting that one area before moving on to the next. And I think sometimes we take on too much. We take on too many tasks, too many projects, and it just builds up that anxiety, that feeling of stress. And I think, and eventually will lead you to wanting to just stop. And I
Mhm.
think that was really great that you brought that up, because that's something I've just been thinking about. I've really have been dealing with focusing on smaller things and, worrying about all the millions of things I could be doing.
Well, and it's hard because there's that nagging voice, right? There's that
Yeah.
thing in the back of your head that goes, "You're not doing enough. You're not doing enough." And I just wanna slap that voice sometimes and just say, "I'm doing enough. I am working for my goals." And I think, sometimes just even defining your goals is step number 1, because
Yeah.
we can say like, "Oh, I wanna have 10,000 followers on Instagram or 100,000 followers on Instagram." That's a great goal, but what is it going to do for you? Like, how is that going to help you in your business if you haven't gotten the posting posts right? Like, great, you have 100,000 followers, but what are they walking away with? What do you want to convey to them? What do you want to say to them? And how do you want to change people's lives? Ultimately, I think is what it's about. But you have to start with you first. And I'm realizing that more and more of what do I want out of life? What do I want for my business? Where do I want to be in however many years? What do I want first? And I think that you have to define that before you're even able to get to the goals that you're hoping to accomplish.
Exactly. And it's about finding what you truly want to get out of this project, whatever it may be. What is it that you hope to accomplish? What do you want to gain from this? Where is your passion at in all of this work that you're doing? And I think
Mm,
that's great to have that as be your focus. Because I think in the end, that'll help you keep pushing forward. If your goal is to make yourself happy and proud of whatever it is that you're making, and ultimately be successful doing that. But for you to be proud in the work you're doing and not be focused on, I want to be this person that I see. As great as they are, maybe that's not what truly is going to make you happy or
mm,
make you feel satisfied in the end. You need to find that for yourself and what you are wanting to get out of this, and then make that your goal. And I think that helps you continue to keep working and not feel as burned out. I mean,
yeah.
we're not promising you won't be burned out, even if that's how you feel.
I'm
But
coming from a place of burnout. So, like, this is not like, do like I do. Like, clearly, we all struggle. We all have these issues and tendencies, and some have different approaches to handling it than others. And like, it really comes down to your why, obviously, but giving yourself grace.
Mhm.
I think it's really hard to give yourself grace and you're like, oh, I only did fill in the blank this week. But at the same time, take a step back and be like, that was enough. That was a good thing. I started running again. I used to be an avid runner about 5 years ago and got injured and just stopped. Like, it was horrible. I hate it. So every like 6 months, I try to pick up running again. And I start with this app called C25K, which
Oh
is
yeah.
from couch to 5K. And the thing that I love about it is that even if you have to repeat stages, or even if you just walk that morning instead of running, like, you're already beating everyone on the couch. And I have to remind myself of that frequently. Like, I am beating everyone who's on the couch, not going for those things that they want. At least I'm going for what I want. I am proving it to myself, the people who don't understand that you can make money on the internet, like my family members who don't necessarily get that. Like, I'm beating everyone on the couch, even by getting up, working on it one step at a time. And, another really fun saying, how do you eat an elephant?
With a knife and a fork. Oh, or no.
Yes, and one bite at a time. You take the knife, you take the fork, and you take a bite one at a time. And I feel like, we've talked about that in paying off debt stories or saving stories or whatever. And it's very similar in your business. Like, everything that you're encouraging people to do, whether it's, pay it off like a little bit at a time, it's the same thing in business of, a little bit at a time. Consistency is key. All of those things that we tell ourselves, just really taking a step back and realizing, yeah, this works. And I'm not going to compare myself to someone who's already 10 steps ahead of me. Like, that's unfair. And I need to give myself grace that at least I'm beating the people on the couch, not even doing anything at all.
Exactly, exactly. And no, thank you. I really appreciate this. This conversation has been helping me too. I think, like
How
I
do
said,
you feel, Chris?
I'm feeling a little bit better because you made some
Mm,
excellent points. Stop comparing yourself as much as you are to other people. make some goals that you can actually achieve and kind of focus on your end, like, I guess, result that you want from all of this. What is it that you hope to get? And what do you think will make you feel satisfied versus trying to live up to the expectations and the appearances that you see all around you? I think all of those tips you gave, Bethany, will really help. I think people feel a little more content and more satisfied with their work, and hopefully stave off some of this feelings of burnout and wanting to stop and give up, because we really want everyone to be successful in what they're doing. I think we're all rooting for each other to
Yes.
keep going even through those difficult times. So, Bethany, thank you so much for coming and talking with me and joining me on here. And before we get out of here, if people want to catch up with you, find out what book you're reading on the hammock, on
Yes.
what's the best place for them to catch up with you?
They can follow me on Instagram at Bethany Bayless, or they can listen to the podcast. The Money Millhouse is where I hang out with my mom. And I am actually launching a new project, which you will probably see at Bethany Bayless on Instagram. So stay tuned.
I'm ready to see this now. I'm excited.
The product of Burnout.
Well, thank you again, Bethany. And we'll put all that in the show notes so people can catch up with you and see what this new project is that you're planning, that you're teasing out here. Because I don't even know what this is. You haven't even told me about this. So,
Well, thank you, Chris, for talking to me today.
I appreciate all of you joining us here again for another episode. Next week, we are going to be joined by Melanie Lockhart, 4-time Plutus Awards winner and founder of DearDebt.com. We're going to be diving into the Plutus Voices talk that she gave back in Irvine, California, all about mental health and money. So you're going to want to make sure that you're subscribed so that way you catch that episode here on the Plutus Awards podcast. You can learn more about our guest and the Plutus Awards podcast at plutusawards.com/podcast and on Instagram at Plutus Awards. Again, thanks so much for joining us, and remember to keep creating.